It was a cold Monday morning. Children laughed and talked loudly as they walked into the school. Their bags were new, their shoes were shiny, their faces were bright and full of joy. But not every child was smiling that morning. At the very end of the school gate, a quiet girl stood holding her old school bag tightly. Her name was Mehek, a 12-year-old girl with big brown eyes and a soft face. Her uniform was clean, but it was old and faded. Her shoes were torn at the front, and the socks didn't match. Her hair was tied with a string instead of a band. She walked slowly, head down, trying not to be noticed. As she entered the classroom, loud laughter filled the room. "Look at her shoes," one boy shouted. "Her bag looks like it came from a garbage can," another laughed. One girl, Hina, the class monitor, walked up to Mehek and looked at her with disgust. "Why do you even come here?" Hina said loudly. "This school is not for beggars." Mehek didn't answer. She just walked to the last bench and sat down quietly. She took out her notebook, which had many pages torn and corners folded. Before she could even open it, splash, blue. Ink poured all over her notebook. Hina held an open ink bottle and smiled proudly. "Oops," she said with fake innocence. "My hand slipped." The class laughed again. Even the teacher who had just entered saw everything, but said nothing. She just looked away and started the lesson. Mehek looked down, wiping her notebook with her sleeve. Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't let them fall. She had learned how to stay quiet. Hours passed. It was lunchtime now. Children sat in groups, opening boxes full of sandwiches, fries, and sweets. The room smelled of food. Mehek opened her bag slowly, but there was no lunch inside. She had nothing to eat. She quietly took out her old water bottle and drank from it. Her stomach growled, but she ignored it. A boy walked by and saw her empty. "Desk no lunch again? What a surprise," he said loudly. "Maybe she eats from the garbage." Everyone laughed again. Mehek just looked down. Just then, something strange happened. A black luxury car pulled up outside the school gate. It was big and shiny, the kind that only rich people owned. It parked slowly. The engine stopped. The windows were dark, so no one could see inside. The laughter stopped. Everyone turned to look at the car. "Who's that?" one girl whispered. The car door opened and a man stepped out. He wore a clean, expensive-looking black suit. His shoes shined. His hair was neat. His face was serious but calm. He looked around once, then started walking toward the school building. Inside the classroom, Mehek looked out the window and froze. Her eyes locked on the man in the suit. Her hands started shaking. Her lips opened slightly, but no words came out. It was like she had seen a ghost from the past. Her heartbeat became faster. "Who is he?" whispered one of the students. "Maybe a school inspector," someone guessed, "or a parent." But Mehek said nothing. She just stared. The man walked up the steps of the school building. Every student in the corridor moved aside for him. Even the teachers looked confused and nervous. He didn't speak to anyone. He walked straight toward the principal's office. Inside the classroom, Mehek was still frozen in place. Her hands gripped the edge of her desk. Her eyes were wide. Hina noticed her reaction. "What happened, beggar girl?" "You look like you've seen a ghost," she said, trying to laugh. But Mehek still said nothing. 5 minutes passed. The school peon came to the door and called out, "Mehek, the principal wants to see you." The room went silent. Everyone stared at her. "Why would the principal want her?" a student whispered. Mehek stood up slowly, confused and scared. As she walked out of the class, her legs felt heavy. Her mind was spinning with questions. She walked down the long hallway, and as she turned the corner, she saw him. The man in the black suit stood outside the principal's office. He turned to her. Their eyes met. He gave a small, warm smile. Mehek stopped. Her mouth opened slightly. She knew this man, but from where? And why was he here, asking for her? Mehek stood still in front of the man. Her hands were shaking, and her heart beat faster with every second. The man gave her a soft smile and said kindly, "Mehek, do you remember me?" She looked at him carefully. His face, it felt familiar. His deep eyes, the way he stood, even the way he said her name. Her memory went back to a rainy evening many months ago. But before she could speak, the principal opened the office, doctor, and said, "Come inside, Mehek." Mehek slowly stepped in. The room smelled of fresh coffee and old paper. The man in the suit was already seated on one side of the desk. The principal sat on the other, trying to act confident, but she looked a little nervous. "Mehek, this is Mr. Rehan, a special guest," the principal said, forcing a smile. He wants to talk to you." Mr. Rehan leaned forward, lightly. "Don't be scared, Mehek. I'm not here to hurt you. I just want to thank you, sir, for something you did for me." Mehek blinked. I don't understand, sir." The man took out a small leather wallet from his coat pocket and placed it on the table. "Do you remember this?" Mehek's eyes widened. Yes, she remembered. It was a rainy night. The roads were wet and dark. Mehek had found that wallet near a tea stall where she sometimes waited for leftover food. She picked it up, opened it, and saw a photo inside. A man and his family. There was cash too, and a business card with his name. People around her said, "Keep it, you need the money more." But Mehek didn't listen. She walked for an hour in the rain until she reached the office mentioned on the card. She waited outside until a guard saw her and called the man. That was the first and only time she saw Mr. Rehan. He had taken the wallet with a surprised look on his face and said, "You returned it?" Mehek had only said, "Yes, sir, it didn't belong to me." He had offered her money, but she refused. "I didn't return it for money," she had said before walking away, back to the present. Mr. Rehan looked at her with pride. "I searched for you," he said gently. "But I didn't even know your name. You left so quickly." Mehek was quiet. She didn't know what to say. This man remembered her after all this time. The principal spoke nervously. "Mr. Rehan is one of the biggest business owners in the city. He's also a well-known social worker." "I'm not here because of my business," Mr. Rehan said, shaking his head. "I'm here because of this girl." He looked at Mehek. "You showed honesty and kindness when you had nothing. That's something rare, even in rich people." Mehek lowered her eyes. "I don't need any reward, sir," she whispered. Mr. Rehan smiled. "I know. That's why I want to give you something more than a reward." He turned to the principal. "I want to sponsor her education," he said. "Everything, her books, her fees, her meals. She should never worry about money again." The principal was silent. She didn't know how to respond. "This school didn't treat her well," Mr. Rehan continued. "I saw it with my own eyes today. But from now on, that will change." He turned to Mehek again. "I'm also opening a scholarship in your name, Mehek, for other poor children who are honest like you." Mehek felt her eyes fill with tears. She had never heard such words before. People always looked at her with pity or disgust, never with respect. But now, a powerful man in a suit was speaking for her. Suddenly, Mr. Rehan reached into his coat again and pulled out a white envelope. "This is for you," he said, handing it to Mehek. She opened it slowly. Inside was a letter and a photo. Her hands started shaking. It was a photo of her mother, standing in front of an office building, smiling. And the letter, it was written in her mother's handwriting. Mehek's lips trembled as she read the first line. "If you ever meet Mr. Rehan again, trust him. He helped me once and he might help you too." Mehek looked up in shock. "You knew my mother?" she asked, her voice shaking. Mr. Rehan nodded slowly. His face turned serious. "Yes," he said. "Your mother was a strong woman, and there's something important I need to tell you about her." Mehek sat quietly, the letter shaking in her small hands. Her heart felt heavy and confused. Her eyes moved from the photo of her mother to the face of Mr. Rehan. "You knew my mother?" she asked again, softly. Mr. Rehan nodded. "Yes, Mehek. Your mother once saved my life." The room went silent. The principal looked surprised. Mehek's mouth was slightly open, trying to understand what she just heard. "I didn't know you were her daughter." Until today, Mr. Rehan continued. But now I'm sure. You look just like her. Same eyes, same courage. Mehek's eyes, filled with tears. Please tell me what happened. No one ever talks about her. I don't remember much. Mr. Rehan leaned back in his chair, his voice calm but full of emotion. Many years ago, before I became rich, I was just a young man working 2 jobs. One day, I got very sick. I collapsed in the middle of the street. No one helped me. People walked past me like I was invisible. He paused. But your mother, she saw me. She didn't know me, but she helped me. She called an ambulance, stayed with me, and even paid for my medicine with her last money. Mehek's eyes widened. She never told me this. She was humble, Rehan said with a soft smile. She said helping someone in need was not something to brag about. That one act changed my life. I promised myself if I ever became rich, I'd help people the way she helped me. He looked straight into Mehek's eyes. I tried finding her, but she had moved. I didn't know where. And now I meet you, her daughter, and who did the same thing. Returned something important even when you had nothing. Mehek wiped her tears silently. Her mother's face in the photo now meant something even more powerful. She wasn't just a poor woman. She was a hero. The principal cleared her throat. Mr. Rehan, this is all very touching, but Mehek is just one student. There are many poor children in the city. Mr. Rehan stood up and looked around the room. Yes, but how many have this heart? He asked firmly. How many stay honest when the world is unfair to them? He turned back to Mehek. Tell me, Mehek, what do you want to be when you grow up? Mehek was quiet. No one had ever asked her that before. She looked down at her torn shoes. I want to become a teacher, she said shyly. A kind one, like the kind I never had. Mr. Rehan smiled, proud and a little emotional. You will, he said, and you'll be one of the best. He turned back to the principal. Make sure she gets everything she needs. Uniforms, books, meals, all on me. And starting tomorrow, she won't sit at the back anymore. The principal nodded slowly, not knowing what else to say. Later that Tin Mehek walked back to her classroom. Everything felt different. The students who once laughed at her were now silent. Even Hina, the class monitor, looked nervous. Where did you go? A boy whispered. Before Mehek could answer, the teacher entered the class with a big announcement. Class, from today onward, we have a new school ambassador, someone who will represent honesty, kindness, and strength. The teacher looked at Mehek. Come forward, Mehek. The whole class turned to look at her. Her legs felt heavy as she walked to the front. Her cheeks were red. Her heart was pounding. Thuk, teacher gave her a badge, student ambassador, and pinned it to her uniform. She didn't win this by money. She earned it by heart. Lunchtime came again. This time Mehek wasn't alone. Some students came to sit beside her. One even offered to share their lunch. She was surprised but thankful. Even Hina avoided making eye contact. The laughter had stopped. The whispers had disappeared. Respect had entered the room. That evening, as Mehek walked home, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Pride. She looked at the sky and whispered, Ami, I hope you can see me. I finally feel seen. And deep in her heart, she knew her life had changed forever. But Mr. Rehan wasn't done yet. There was still one last surprise waiting for Mehek. Something bigger than school. Something about her past and her future. The next morning, Mehek arrived at school with a calm smile. For the first time, she didn't feel invisible. Students who once mocked her now gave her space, even nodded politely. She walked to her seat, not at the back anymore, but in the second row, close to the blackboard. The badge on her chest sparkled. Student ambassador. But even with this new respect, something inside Mehek still felt unfinished. She kept thinking about the letter from her mother and the photo that Mr. Rehan gave her yesterday. There was something about her mother's words that stayed in her mind. If you ever meet Mr. Rehan again, trust him. He helped me once and he might help you too. Why did her mother write that? How did she know they'd meet again? And then Mr. Rayhan's final words echoed in her head. There's still something important I need to show you. Later that day, a car pulled up outside the school again. Mehek's heart beat faster when she saw it was Mr. Rayhan. This time, he came straight to her classroom. The teacher welcomed him with a nervous smile and said, Please, sir, you may take her for a few minutes. Mr. Rayhan nodded and looked at Mehek. Would you come with me, Mehek? I want to show you something. She quietly stood up and followed him out of the class. They walked down the hallway and exited through the school gate. His car door opened and Mehek sat beside him in the back seat. Where are we going, sir? She asked gently. To a place your mother once loved, he said, and where a part of your past is still waiting. The car stopped outside a small, old apartment building. It wasn't fancy, but it looked clean and peaceful. Mr. Rayhan led her to the third floor. The door of one apartment was already open. An old lady stood there, smiling warmly. She's been waiting to meet you, Mr. Rayhan said. The old lady came forward and gently touched Mehek's cheek. You've grown so big, she whispered. Just like your mother. Mehek looked at her, confused. Did you know my mother? She was like a daughter to me, the lady said. She used to visit me when she had no one else to talk to. Mr. Rayhan added, This is Amabi. Your mother left something with her soul for you. The lady went inside and returned with a small wooden box. She handed it to Mehek with shaking hands. She told me, Give this to Mehek when she's old enough to understand. I think. Today is that day. Mehek sat down on the floor and slowly opened the box. Inside, she found a small diary covered in blue cloth, a folded drawing made by a child, a sealed envelope with her name written in her mother's handwriting. Her hands trembled as she opened the envelope first. She began to read. My dearest Mehek, if you're reading this, it means I'm not with you anymore. I'm sorry for the pain, the hunger, and the loneliness you've faced. But I want you to know, you are strong, you are kind. You are honest, just like I raised you. When you were born, I had nothing, but the day I held you, I felt like the richest woman alive. I gave up my dreams so you could have yours. People might laugh at you, they may ignore you. But one day, someone will see the real you. And when that day comes, don't hide, step forward. And if you ever meet Mr. Rayhan again, trust him. He has a good heart. Never forget where you come from. But don't be afraid of where you can go. I love you. Always. Ami. Tears flowed down Mehek's face. Her fingers touched each word like it was gold. Mr. Rayhan placed a hand on her shoulder. Your mother was one of the bravest women I ever met. Mehek looked up at him, her voice shaking. Why did she never tell me? Why did she leave all this hidden? She wanted you to find your own strength, he replied. And you did. Inside the diary, Mehek found pages filled with her mother's thoughts, her fears, dreams, and hopes for Mehek's future. The child's drawing. It was something Mehek made when she was 4, a stick figure family with me and Ami written on top. She hugged it tightly to her chest. As they left the apartment, Mr. Rayhan stopped Mehek at the stairs. I have one more thing to ask, he said. She looked at him with curious eyes. I want you to speak tomorrow in front of your class, share your story. Let them know who you really are. Mehek's eyes widened. Me? Speak in front of everyone? He nodded. Yes. The world needs to hear the voice of the girl with torn shoes, who never gave up. The next morning, Mehek stood in front of her cracked mirror. She wore her cleanest clothes. Her torn shoes were polished the best she could. Her hair was tied back neatly with a ribbon she found at the bottom of her school bag. Her hands shook a little. Her heart beat faster. I have to speak in front of the class today. It felt scary. But her mother's letter was still fresh in her heart. Her words kept repeating in her mind. Don't be afraid of where you can go. Mehek took a deep breath and walked out of her small house. At school, students filled the classroom. Some were chatting. Others were eating snacks or finishing homework. When Mehek entered, many heads turned. But this time, no one laughed. She quietly took her seat. Hina, the class monitor, was sitting ahead of her. She turned, looked at Mehek for a moment, then looked away, not mocking, just unsure. The bell rang. Their teacher entered with a smile. "Today, before we begin, we have something special," she said. "One of your classmates has something to share. A story that might change the way we all think." She turned to Mehek. "Mehek, please come forward." The room went silent. Mehek stood slowly. Her legs felt heavy again. Her throat was dry, but she remembered her mother. She remembered the drawing. She remembered Mr. Rehan's words. She walked to the front of the class. Some students whispered. A few looked surprised. One boy snorted softly. Mehek stood still, looked at her classmates, and began to speak. "My name is Mehek," she said, her voice small at first. "I'm 12 years old. Some of you already know me, the girl with torn shoes, the girl who doesn't bring lunch, the one who sits quietly at the back." She paused. "I want to tell you something I've never told anyone. About my mother, and about myself." The room stayed quiet. My mother was a kind woman. She worked in 3 houses. She never had nice clothes or money. But she had something bigger, a good heart. She taught me to never lie, to never steal. Even when we had no food, she told me to stay honest. Some students looked at each other a little ashamed. Mehek continued. "She passed away when I was 8. Since then, I've been alone. I come to school not because it's easy, but because it's the only place where I feel like I still have a chance." Her voice got stronger. "I know some of you laughed at me. I know you thought I was dirty or useless. But yesterday, something happened. A man came to school. He used to be poor too. My mother helped him years ago, and now he came back and helped me." Hina shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Mehek's eyes moved around the room. "Being poor isn't something I chose, but being kind is. And even if I wear old shoes and bring no lunch, I still carry my mother's values with me." She held up a photo. "This is her. Her name was Sana. She was not rich, but she was a hero." A few students gasped softly. Some nodded slowly. Mehek's hands stopped shaking. "I'm not asking for pity," she said firmly. "I just want respect. And I promise, one day I will become a teacher. And when I do, I'll make sure no child ever feels small in front of others." Silence. Then a few hands began to clap. It started softly, but then grew louder. Even Hina, slowly and awkwardly, joined in. The teacher walked up and hugged Mehek gently. "I'm proud of you, Sho." Days passed. Something started changing at school. Slowly, quietly, but clearly. Mehek noticed it first when she walked into class one morning. There were no giggles, no side comments. No one looked at her shoes. Instead, one boy simply nodded at her. Another girl moved her bag to make space next to her. It wasn't love, not yet, but it was respect. The teacher started calling on her more often during lessons. And Mehek, now with books and proper notebooks, thanks to the scholarship from Mr. Rehan, was finally able to answer with confidence. She wasn't invisible anymore. One afternoon, after class, Mehek stayed behind to clean the blackboard. It had become her small habit, a quiet way to think before walking home. As she wiped the last corner, she heard footsteps. It was Hina. Mehek turned, unsure what to expect. Hina looked nervous, holding a folded paper in her hand. I wanted to say something," Hina said. Mehek stayed quiet. "I was mean to you," Hina continued. "Before, I used to laugh, say things. I thought it was funny, but it wasn't." She looked down, embarrassed. "I didn't know your story. I didn't know you were going through so much." She handed the paper to Mehek. "It's something I drew. I know you like art. It's for you." Mehek opened it. It was a drawing of 2 girls standing under the sun, smiling. One had long hair tied with a ribbon. The other held a notebook. Mehek smiled softly. "Thank you," she whispered. Hina smiled back. "Maybe we could be friends." Mehek gave a small nod. The next few weeks flew by. Mr. Rehan visited the school again. This time not as a stranger, but as a guest of honor. He donated books for the library, computers for the lab, and meals for the students who needed it most. But, more than that, he shared his story. In the auditorium, he stood in front of the whole school. "I was once like Mehek," he said to the students. "Poor, alone. No one believed in me. No one gave me a chance." He looked at Mehek sitting in the front row. "But one woman changed my life. She didn't give me money, she gave me hope. Her name was Sana, Mehek's mother." The students gasped softly. "She gave me food when I was starving, a place to sleep when I had nowhere to go. I promised myself that one day, if I ever became successful, I'd return the kindness." He looked at the principal. "Today, I'm keeping that promise." After the speech, many students walked up to Mehek. Some said sorry. Some asked about her mother. Some simply smiled. Mehek didn't feel like the poor girl anymore. She felt seen. One evening, Mehek walked to the old bakery, the same place where she once stood hungry and alone. This time, she had a proper uniform, a school bag filled with books, and a small notebook full of her own drawings. She sat on a bench nearby, opened the notebook, and started sketching. An old man from the bakery came out and saw her. "You look different now," he said kindly. Mehek smiled. "I feel different." The old man nodded. "I remember when you stood outside this window hungry." Mehek looked up. "I remember too. That day changed my life." As she walked home, she passed a small boy sitting on the ground. His clothes were dusty. He had no shoes, and he was staring at a sandwich in a shop window. For a moment, Mehek stopped. She reached into her bag, took out the extra sandwich Hina had given her, and walked toward the boy. "Here," she said softly. "Eat this." The boy looked up, surprised. "Why?" he asked. "You don't know me." Mehek smiled gently. "Because someone once helped me too." That night, Mehek opened her old notebook, the one that still had some ink stains from when she was bullied. On the last page, she wrote, "Being poor is not something to be ashamed of, but turning pain into kindness, and that's what makes us strong." She folded the notebook, placed it beside her bed, and whispered, "Thank you, Ami. I'm not alone anymore." 2 years later, the same school building still stood. The walls had been painted fresh, the classrooms had computers, and the library had doubled in size. But the biggest change wasn't in the bricks, it was in the students. Inside Class 7B, the teacher called out names from the attendance sheet. A few giggles echoed. Someone passed a folded paper from behind. Just another normal school day. Then the teacher smiled and said, "And now let's welcome back one of our brightest ex-students. She's here to talk about her journey and share something special." The class sat up straight. From the doorway, a girl walked in. Clean uniform, shiny shoes, confident steps. A soft smile. It was Mehek. Some of the students whispered, surprised. "Is that really her? She looks so different now. She used to sit in the last row." Mehek smiled and stood in front of the class. "I used to be one of you," she said. "Actually, I used to be smaller than all of you, and not in size, but in hope." Everyone went quiet. I remember standing at that window. She pointed toward the far side, wearing torn shoes, no lunch, scared to speak. She took a breath. "But someone believed in me. A stranger in a suit, Mr. Rihan, but even before him, it was my mother, Sana, a poor housemaid. She taught me kindness, courage, and never to be ashamed of being poor." Mehek turned the page. In her small notebook, "I want to read something I wrote the day I gave my first public speech here, 2 years ago." She read slowly. "Respect is not something you wear. It's something you earn by standing tall when life tries to crush you." The class clapped. Some students, especially the younger ones, looked inspired. Later, outside the classroom, Mehek met Hina near the garden. They both smiled. "I saw your drawing competition results online," Hina said. "You came first in the whole district?" Mehek nodded. "Yes, and the art school in the city gave me a full scholarship. I leave next month." They sat on the bench, the same one they once fought near. "You really did it, Mehek," Hina said softly. "You turned your pain into power." Mehek looked up at the sky, eyes shining. I didn't do it alone, she said. Kindness helped me, and now it's my turn. That evening, Mehek visited the old building she used to live in. Her room was now rented by another poor family. She didn't disturb them. She just placed a small gift box outside the door. Inside was a lunchbox, a new pencil case, and a note. For the little girl who lives here now. Never stop dreaming. Someone is always watching. Mehek before. Leaving the city, Mehek met Mr. Rehan one last time. He was waiting in the cafe where they had first sat together. You've grown so much, he said with a proud smile. Mehek smiled too. Because you gave me the first push. No, he said, shaking his head. I only lit a match, you carried the fire. He handed her a small box. What's this? Mehek asked. Open it. Inside was a silver necklace, a simple heart with the letter S inside. Sana, Mehek whispered. She saved me once. And through you, she saved many more, Mr. Rehan said. They sat in silence, full of peace. At the city train station, Mehek stood with her suitcase. The train to her new future was about to leave. As she boarded, she looked back one last time, at the city, the school, the pain, the memories, and she whispered, Goodbye, but I'll come back. Years later, a new school opened in the same city. Beautiful walls, smart classrooms, and a big banner, Sana Hope School out for every child who dares to dream. And at the opening ceremony, a woman in a white dress cut the ribbon. Her speech was short but powerful. I was once bullied for being poor. Today, I open this school for children like me, because every child, rich or poor, deserves to be seen, heard, and helped. The crowd cheered, and far in the back, a little girl watched with wide eyes. She wore torn shoes, but she now believed in dreams, because Mehek's story had reached her. And it was just the beginning for someone else.